So one time, we are seated in our newsrooms, and then a company by the name Safaricom Investment Co-operative Society makes a big announcement. And I would like to read in part a particular statement because I do remember. And they said that they are delighted to introduce to us their new CEO, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to read the entire statement because on the Captain's Arena, we don't have that much time. But then one thing stood out, that for the entire lifeline of that company, they were getting their first female chief executive officer. So we said, wow, what a turnaround for that company. So that chief executive officer must be somebody of note. And so that particular company has been a company of concern to a majority of Kenyans since that particular appointment. But then again, there were some headlines that came out of that particular appointment, that indeed now the company was ready to spearhead or start a new chapter in investments and also being the leading solution when it comes to property and property management in the country. Then we said, wow, it introduces us to a conversation or a captain who essentially finds herself in a place that has not been dominated by women before. On the Captain's Arena, on this particular episode, I'm going to introduce to you a name that you already have known, and I'm referring to my notes because there's a particular point in this particular interview that I don't want to get wrong, especially her career journey. Her name, Sarah Wahogo, the Chief Executive Officer for Safaricom Investment Co-operative Society. How are you doing?
Good, Simba.
I've spoken to you a couple times, but there's something that I've never really known. Because the other times you've spoken, it's just about the business, what you want to achieve at the Investment Cooperative Society. But today, I want us to open a chapter that majority of people have been asking questions about. Your personal story, before we get to talk about what you want to achieve at Safaricom Investment Cooperative Society. Okay, let's begin like this. You grew up in a village called Haraka in Nyandarua. And so when we're thinking about the question to ask you as pertains that particular story, we said, is there something that has remained the same in that particular village? That given that power and opportunity today, of course you do have the power and opportunity today, you like to go back and say, I want to change this. What would that be?
Thanks, Simba. And this story is very close to my heart. And it's a story that makes me very emotional. And when you talk about what has not changed, the area, specifically Nyandarua, farmers, and specifically to my village, these are farmers, small-scale farmers. Unfortunately, till today, farmers don't have water. And if you know, or if you come from that area, you know we have one of the biggest dams, Sasumwa Dam. And unfortunately, this dam serves people in Nairobi with water. Farmers there don't have water. You find women getting water from the boreholes, you know, those 70 feet boreholes that are done manually. So that is one thing that I would really, really want to change.
So were you going to the river while you're growing up? Because that same problem, like to think, has been in that particular village throughout.
Yeah, I've gone to the river, and unfortunately, the area also doesn't have permanent rivers. Yeah, so we have dams, the seasonal dams. We also have the boreholes, the manual boreholes that people usually dig, 70 feet down, 50. So I remember as a small girl, and up to when I left home to come to Nairobi, I remember fetching water No.
From those particular dams?
Yes,
The
yes, yes.
seasonal ones, you say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
With the 20-liter jerry can, carrying all the way home to take water for showering, for cooking, for washing clothes. Yeah.
So when you go back, I know you travel back, I don't know how many times. Do you still see that particular image, young girls carrying those jerry cans, and you're like, I want to change this?
It's still there, and the reason it's still there, we still don't have tapped water.
Yes.
So as much as we know these days people are able to buy tanks, still the area remains without water in terms of the piped water. So when it's very dry, you realize there's a big problem.
Pretty much. Let's go back to your early childhood. I'm going to tell a story of how, as a young girl, you were given a piece of land. That's for later. Let's go back to your early childhood. I know now you are a CEO of a company that majority of Kenyans are looking at. It's one of the top companies in the country currently. When you look back, is there a particular story in your childhood that you like to then say, well, maybe that particular one, other than that one for getting a piece of land, did prepare me for this particular position that I'm currently running?
Many stories I remember, but what really stands out for me is that I remember as a very young girl being so responsible. As early as I think 4 years, I could be sent to the shop and I would cycle a bicycle, and I would be so reliable. I would like cycle in no time, I'm back.
Hold on, you grew up cycling?
Yes, yes, yes. Surprisingly, I cannot do it today, but I used to cycle.
Yeah.
Like in 10 minutes, I've gone to the shops and back. And if I was going with another child, like I remember I grew up with one of my nephews, I would just leave them behind. So I think I have been so reliable from when I was so young. So I could be sent, if anyone I feel they are dragging me behind, I would go, come back, and they meet me coming back.
Is it because of the way that you were brought up, you would say?
Yeah, I think the way I was brought up, then what really was very clear in my mind is that I didn't want to live the life my parents lived. I really wanted a better life for myself, and I remember as a young girl, I would pay a lot of attention when you go to public hospitals, for example, and you see the kind of suffering. You find people who are so sick, who look so poor, and I definitely knew that I didn't want that kind of a life. I wanted a better life for myself and for my family.
Well, you grew up, you were brought up by farmers. Your parents were farmers. Would you say that that's one of the most humble upbringings that a girl from Nyandarua would essentially grow up in?
Yes, it was very humbling, and most important, it was a lot of hard work. Because Simba, I remember me leaving school and going to the shamba. I have tilled all my life, I mean, until I left home. And I remember I would even, when I was in high school, I would close school, and the next day or even the same day in the afternoon, if I got home early, I go to the shamba. So I think as much as it taught me to be disciplined, I feel that it also really made me want a better life for myself. So it was very humbling, and even living with parents who didn't have much,
yes,
you know. I think growing up, I didn't know that a child could ask for many things, you know, like you couldn't demand because you knew there was only basic.
That understanding, you grew up with that understanding.
Exactly. Actually, up to when I was past my teen, I didn't know that I could demand for money or ask for money, you know.
You live the life of, if it's available, fine. If it's not.
I can't remember myself demanding for anything. I can't remember.
You waited to be given, if it was there.
It was there. If it's not there, I was okay.
I'll be coming back to that story then, because I'll be learning what your management style is now. But then your first stint at management, like majority of people might not know, is that while we were still a young girl, you were given a piece of land. Could you give us a background to that story?
I was 9 years old.
9 years old?
Or 8.
Yeah.
Yes, because I remember I was in class 3, and fortunately I was a very bright student. So at 10 years I was in class 4. 9 years I was in class 3.
Okay, sir, that's a lot of stories. Let's unpack it for our audience in this way. Well, at 10 years, you were in class 4.
Yes.
Were you moved classes because of how smart you were?
No. I was not moved classes, but I never repeated any class. Remember, those days kids used to repeat. I never repeated any class, and I would always be top of my class. So I was really sharp. So I remember in class 3, I remember I had my own piece of land where I would grow peas. No, in Nyandarua there is the green peas, and I would sell, and I would give my mom to buy me clothes.
Who came up with the idea of giving you this piece of land?
Simba, as far as I can remember, I was very hardworking. Even as a young girl, I would sweep the compound. I would be left to peel potatoes for lunch, and I would quickly do it. So I really can't remember how that piece of land came to be, but I remember my mom gave me a piece of land. I tilled, and I remember my hands had sores.
And then the blisters, isn't it?
Exactly, the blisters. At some point, I could not even be able to hold the djembe, but I continued. So at 9 years.
Those true values of management. But could you take us around? Was it your sole responsibility, or your mom and dad would come in and help them?
No. The small shamba was my sole responsibility.
Completely?
Completely.
You would decide what to grow, what to...
Yes. Of course, they would support me and buy me the seedlings or the seeds. But the shamba was all mine. I would spend a lot of time tilling and doing all those things, harvesting. Because again, we had now the family land where we also had my parents now farming. But that specific piece of land was all mine.
Up until what point did you let it go?
Now, what happened, it's a very interesting story. So I think my mom noticed that I was focusing so much on this piece of land. And now I started even thinking of how I could sell the seeds and all that, those things. And what I think today is that she thought I could lose my focus from education.
From education, yeah.
So after I harvested like 3 times, it means I did 3 planting and harvesting. She said, no, you cannot proceed. I think she realized, or maybe she noted, that I could lose focus on education and start farming and focus on issues in the village.
Which could have been a bad outcome, you would say.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
Pretty much. So let's leave you then and go back to high school. I don't know whether you remember now. That's a story that people will be pretty much interested in. When you're particularly in high school, that's when people start to pick what they like, what they're more attuned to. What is this that you liked in high school?
I went to one of the best provincial schools then.
Definitely.
Because I also topped my KCP in my local primary school. So I think in high school, I really wanted to be a doctor. Unfortunately, teenage life can sometimes take away the dream and all those things. Then I think in Form 3, I also lost my dad. So I didn't get the grade, but I also remember at some point as well, I also wanted to be a lecturer. But all these things, I think as a young person, you dream, you're not even sure what you really want. But I remember very well when I was in Form 2, what was running in my mind is to be a doctor or a lecturer.
That's it, pretty much. Now, we track then your career all the way to uni. That's where the story now really begins. And that's why I refer to my notes, because I don't want to get it wrong. Because indeed, what really happened, if you look at exactly what your qualifications were, you have a management degree, you have a national diploma in management information systems, as well as certified accountancy. If you look at how you ended up in your career, did you approach your education knowing very well that in one way or another, I was going to end up in these particular places?
If I say yes, I would be lying. But what was very clear in my mind is that I really wanted a career, and I knew whichever way, to a great extent, I was very confident that I could succeed. Yes. And remember, even at this point when I'm doing all these courses, you know, at that age, you're not very sure that that is the line that you really need to pursue. So as much as you are doing all these courses, you really don't have the end in mind. So you don't know that you would even become an accountant in the first place. What you do is that you're just pursuing what your family, your mentors, or the people who are close to you think is marketable at that point in time.
Yes.
Yes.
To the point that you ended up in accountancy, was it too? How did you find yourself in accountancy? Because when you look at the other courses as well, they are not essentially related to accountancy as well.
I think what I would say is that what drew me to accountancy is that people kept on saying it's challenging, it's difficult. So I really wanted to do this course that people keep on saying it's difficult, because I was very confident that I could succeed.
Actually pass it, isn't it?
Exactly.
How did you find it? Because you went all the way up to CPA.
Yes. Yeah. I finished CPS, but I can tell you that the first exam I attempted, I failed all the papers. I was not going to class. Remember, there was a time where CPS students, I think even today, would tutor themselves. Like, you just borrow books from people who have done it before. You study for yourself, then you go and sit for exams. So that is what I did, and I failed. I got FFF. It was 3 papers for CPS Section 1.
Which was very unusual for you, because in your entire education life, you've never...
Exactly.
never
so
been such a
even I think when I was preparing for these exams, I didn't take it seriously, or I didn't take it with the seriousness it deserved. I think I thought it's just an exam. I would go, sit, pass. No, I'm used to passing.
Pretty much. I'll be coming back to that story, because there's somebody who wants for us to ask you that particular question. I'll be coming to it. Now, lastly then, before we move into how your career has moved all the time up to where you are right now, people describe you as soft, humble, calculated. Is that a personality that we would like, maybe if we come to your workplace today, we will see you applying in terms of your management skill?
I apply it a lot, and for a leader, many times you meet very difficult situations. And if you're that person who reacts and is emotional and confronts, it can't work. So I've learned to be very calm, to listen, to take action where necessary. But I've also learned that in life you expect anything, you know. Many situations where people feel or expect that I would get emotional, panic, all these things, I rarely do. So I calm down, I think, then I take action. Because even if you decide to panic and react, many times it doesn't help. And again, as a leader, you know, there are so many people who are looking up to you. So if there's a situation in the company or even in the family, and you're the first person to panic, and you make everyone, you know, panic as well. So you need to be bold in a very calm way, so that the people who look up to you can also be confident.
Pretty much. What pressure comes with being the CEO of a company that people entrust their money with? Because that's essentially what it is that you're doing. Give me your money, I would help you invest your money. What kind of pressure is that? And would you say that life prepared for you to handle this kind of pressure?
There's a lot of pressure. Number one, we have a huge number of members of staff who rely on this organization to fend for their families, and if this organization is not there today, some of these children, their kids, would not even go to school. That is number one for me.
That's how you look at it. For you, it is the people that you work with, the people work for you now.
Number one.
That's number one for you.
That is my number one priority.
Yes.
Anything that we do should be able to protect the organization, because there are tens of hundreds of employees who rely on this organization. Apart from employees, we have other service providers who directly or indirectly rely on our organization. But most important, we have our members. Our members who have put in their hard-earned money and trusted our brand to deliver returns for them. So when I wake up at night, the reason why I would be awake at night is because of our investors, because they expect that they put in money and they expect returns. And if they don't get returns, then I know it will not be an easy discussion.
Pretty much. Guess what? We're still with the CEO for Safaricom Investment Cooperative on Captain's Arena. She's a captain who says, for me, first, it's the people that are working within the organization. If they are fine, then I know that company is going to succeed. So once we come back, her career journey just doesn't start there and end there. By the way, she worked at KBC one time. We'll start from there. Once we come back, talk about it, and then know exactly what the difference between a SACCO and an investment cooperative is, and a cooperative in general, and answer that big question, why would you want to be in that cooperative today, once we come back. Welcome back to Captain's Arena. We're here with the Safaricom Investment Cooperative CEO, talking about that particular space. Guess what? She's already told us a personal story, and in case you missed it, you can actually get to catch it live and Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. Sarah, there's something that I want to ask you. I don't know whether that should be a question in this particular episode, but when you're walking into a company and then people tell you, hi, here we didn't have a history of women CEOs, you're the first one. Does that linger at the back of your mind?
It does, and I think for me is to really thank God for the opportunity, because women can do it, and women are nurturers. Women take care and they support growth. So for me, really the issue for me was not a female CEO. It was actually the task ahead, because again I was expected to turn around the performance of the organization. Yes.
If you look at the 11 years experience that you had prior to this particular appointment, and I will point it out, and that's why I said that today I'm going to carry this particular script so that I don't get it wrong. If you look at where you were leading in finance, accounting, sales and administration functions. Would you say that there's a specific role within those 11 years that essentially prepared you for that particular appointment?
Yes, and actually every single year of experience assists or supports the role I play today. And it's a lot of so many things put together. So when I was working as a finance manager, the knowledge or the understanding of numbers comes in handy, because as a CEO you need to understand the numbers, how the organization is performing. You need to understand marketing, you need to understand sales, because if your sales team is not performing, then even you as a CEO, you don't have a job. So I can say that the years of experience that I had prior to this role came in handy, And I could not have done it if I had not gone through that process.
Yes. The appointment looked as if you were somebody from within who understood the company functions. You were essentially in critical positions within that particular company. So the thinking around the appointment, you can say yes or no, was that you were somebody who understood exactly what the company needed to achieve from a critical perspective. Is that what it is?
Very true. Not only what the company needed to achieve, but what needed to be done to fix and move.
Yes.
Yes.
All of a sudden now, you are in a new area, property and property investment and management as well. Did you maybe second guess and say, guys, yeah, I've got experience in these areas, but maybe not under this particular ones directly? Was there a thought process to you accepting that appointment?
No. Really, I can't say that I second guessed myself. I was very confident that I had what it required to succeed in that role.
Yes.
Yes.
Then boom, now the appointment comes. Everybody's talking about it. What is the first thing, Sarah, that you said, now that I'm here, this is how people are going to see this particular cooperative society? What was the first thing that you wanted to achieve? And have you achieved it since appointment?
A number of things at a strategic level we needed to achieve, not just me, but also the board and the team that was there then. Number one was to have a sustainable organization, one that would give competitive returns to investors, because after COVID the performance was bad and investors had started to lose confidence in the society. So I knew that if I had to succeed in this role, I had to turn around the performance. And for people who understand turning around organizations, you have to agree, or rather to focus on a specific area. It could be people. Do you have the resources? It could be a specific line of business that can assist you turn around quickly as a low-hanging fruit. Yes. Because at that point you may not be able to focus on so many things, but ultimately I knew that the institution required to diversify.
When we look at your society today, a lot of people confuse what essentially a cooperative society is and what a cooperative investment society is. For the sake of our audience who are listening to you today, could you give us the distinction between just a cooperative society and a cooperative investment society?
A savings and credit society is one where investors put their money and they borrow money. Most times it's a deposit taking. For an investment cooperative, you invest and the objective is to earn a return, not really to borrow a loan. That is the key difference. You also realize that for SACCOs, the regulator, that is SASRA, has regulated and advised that they should focus on the business of lending money. But they're not allowed to invest in illiquid assets like land, properties. They're not supposed to do that. So it gives an opportunity for an investment cooperative to get this space there, invest in illiquid assets and any other line of business, and give returns at the end of the year.
Yes.
So in other words, what we are saying, that you as an investor, you come bring your money, at the end of the year you earn what we call rebates or dividends. Yes.
Yes. Since your appointment as CEO for this particular company, are there projects that make you proud, Sarah, that indeed I took the company in this direction and we performed?
I want to say, Simba, even before we come to projects, what I'm very proud of today is that when I became the CEO, I took over the realms of the CEO's office. The bottom line has grown more than 10 times. I remember the first year, the performance was some 17 million net profit.
Yes.
We grew to over 100. Last year, we made a net profit of 278 million and distributed over 170 million to our investors in terms of rebates. I think that is not where we want to be, because our objective is to be able to give our investors a double-digit return consistently. It means that if you invest with Safaricom Investment Cooperative, you have a guaranteed minimum return of 10%, because that is where the double digit starts. That is one of the achievements that I can say I'm really, really proud of, that within a very short time we could be able to see great results. But most important, if you look at our current projects, they are really, really good projects, where we are able to give our investors projects at a very affordable price, ready to build, the value, you know. So if you look at all our recent products and projects, it's something that I'm very, very, very proud of, because as a person, even before I call my investors, it's something I can invest in and I have invested in.
When you sit and look at the direction that the company has taken since your appointment, would you say that the vision that you had upon your appointment, that you're slowly and slowly getting there, Sarah?
Yes, very confidently. The organization has grown, even in terms of resources, in terms of members of staff, cash flow, asset base. You know, it has grown in all metrics.
In terms of how people look at the company, and I would say this is a lot of reservation. They would say, well, you know, new CEO in office, so maybe hold on. It's when she's just getting started. We might not know how this company is gonna go. And people say, maybe market reaction. You know, it's just been 2 years down the line. We might not know exactly where she's taking the company. Would you say that the foundation that you're building for that particular organization right now is not essentially short-term or just a market reaction to your appointment?
We are creating a very, very sustainable organization.
Yes.
A very, very sustainable organization. Whatever we have put in place, it should be able to serve our investors in the long term.
Yes.
Yes, so it's not about the new CEO, it's about what we've been able to do to ensure a very, very firm foundation.
Yes. Pretty much. Now, somebody listening to today is going to say, well, interesting story. I've known Sarah today, but why would I want to join, number one, as a company, join that particular investment, or as an individual, join your company today, so that I can entrust you with my money to tell me where to put it, to say, well, I'm not going to worry about project, they're going to do it for me.
Number one is that we are working towards guaranteeing minimum returns for our investors. So we want to get to a level where if you put your 100,000, you know at the end of the year, this is the returns I expect.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. That is what we are working towards, and we are putting all effort, and we have a very engaged staff, members of staff.
Yes.
So that is one, but most important, any property, because I know we deal with a lot of properties, any property that we bring on board, it's well thought out. The value to our investors is good. So we don't just onboard either properties or businesses, because we are also getting into new lines of businesses just for the sake of it. It's well thought out, and at this point in time I can tell you that our members of staff are so sensitive to many issues, including reputation. If you speak to any of our members of staff today, we'll tell you that the one thing that we cannot afford to get into is into a reputation risk. So everyone is guarding the brand, the organization, just to ensure that we get to hit our objective.
As a mother who grew up again with a very humble beginning, what is this one value that you like your kids to grow up with? Because I can already tell what your values were.
So for my kids, I think I would speak about 3 values, not one: discipline, humility, respect, integrity. I think those are 4, but maybe discipline is overall.
So just your values. Because I would say the same thing about you. As well, your story is just essentially around discipline, humility, hard work, and when we don't find you at work, what do you do?
When I'm not at work, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, but most important, I also support children with visual impairment. What, Simba, you may not know is that I'm also a mother to a visually impaired child, and I've realized some of these children who are abled differently live in a lot of poverty. I can afford to buy my son a gadget, a phone. Some parents cannot afford. So that is what I'm very passionate about, and it gives me a lot of joy when I support these children. And it's an area that I really want to pursue, because you also realize that these children who cannot see, cannot play with other kids. Other children are going to the fields to play football. These children have to sit back and either wait for someone to come and keep them busy. So there are so many opportunities that do not exist in this country. We have games for visually impaired, like goal ball, even football for visually impaired, but we don't have that in this country. So it's an area that I will be very keen to pursue. Support even girls with visually impaired in any way that I can, just to support them to live a better life.
You know they say that every other CEO, when you're appointed, your ultimate goal is to change the face and value of a company. But what they don't really talk about is how that particular position also changes you, Sarah. It's been a couple of years in that position. How would you say that this particular position has essentially changed you as a person?
As a person, I don't think I've changed much. I think what has changed for me is the opportunities. So I'm able to interact with people who can influence or impact other people's lives and my life as well. But by and large, I still live the very normal life, only that I'm in a position where I can influence decision and impact other people's lives. That is the only thing that has changed for me.
What is your definition of a successful business, Sarah?
A successful business is one that is able to withstand disruption. You know, Simba, in today's business, there's a lot of disruption. Today, we would be sitting here as Safaricom Investment Cooperative. You may not know that the competitor that you're thinking about today is not the one that will get you out of the market. So we need to ensure that we create sustainable organization that are proof to disruption. I think if as a CEO you can be able to achieve that, then I think that would be success.
2 questions left. I want you to take 45 seconds in each, and they're very personal questions that I'd like to ask in just 45 seconds. When are you going to say, I am done?
I would say that, number one, if I would be able to give my investors a double-digit return, I would be very satisfied. And people also keep saying that a good player has to know when to leave.
When to leave it? When is that going to be? on a personal note.
I think if I deliver on the budget targets that we have, if I deliver on the double digit, if I am able to create a sustainable organization, then I think I would be comfortable to call it a day.
That you shall have achieved. And those are the personal targets that every day you wake up in the morning and say, if I achieve that, then any other question around the way that I've carried this particular company, tick, tick, tick.
Exactly.
So finally then, I don't know whether it's okay for me to ask this question because you've essentially answered it. In 5 years, if your tenure is going to extend to that level, in 5 years, what is this thing that Safaricom Investment Cooperative is just going to be?
In 5 years, I would want to take Safaricom Investment Cooperative to the level that nobody has ever dreamt about, in terms of resources, in terms of revenues, in terms of presence, in terms of impact. That is the vision that I have.
One thing that you live your life by, Sarah, what is it? Is there a quote that makes you wake up every morning to go to work?
What makes me wake up and go to work?
That's your humility coming now. And I knew that was going to be a challenge because when we were talking about the response to that particular question, they said, well, you just got to see how humble she is, and that might be the answer you're going to get. Yeah, but if there's one motivation that makes you say, I got to do this, what is that?
Actually, probably that is what drives me to wake up every day, irrespective of the challenges, is my staff and my investors. Yes, that is what keeps me going.
Thank you very much. Whew. Interesting thing. Today, I would implore you, by the way, right now, to just type in Safaricom Investment Cooperative, all right? Then you got to see exactly what projects that they have on offer. Then you see the mastermind behind the direction of that company is a captain that has taken to an industry in the country, by the way, that has been blamed for underperforming. If you look at majority of the critics of the real estate sector, will tell you, well, and property management will tell you is an area that you need to have the guts to get into. But she's in it, and she's saying, we're winning. And she is winning. Lisa, thank you very much for coming by. This has been one of those, all right? Today, speaking to Sarah Wahogo, the CEO for Safaricom Investment Cooperative. Until next week, I'll meet you for another episode. For now, it's a goodbye and good night.